Hello, welcome to this your channel on the Eurofan. Text me. Croatia was very close to get the very first victory for the country after the now Eurovision legend Baby Lasagna won the televote, just like Karija did 2 years before, placing like the Finnish rapper in a more than outstanding second place, achieving the best exterior result for the Balkan country since its participation in the contest. After the entry became a true mass phenomenon both at home and abroad, Croatia was truly excited, not having any doubt on keeping its participation, but at the same time in the expectation on who will follow his steps, having the difficult task of achieving a similar result or even getting a desired first victory. For this, we are going to discover more about the next artist that had the chance this time of waving the Croatian colors on the main stage of Basel. Here we go. For today's episode, I'm going to review the Croatian entry for Eurovision 2025, which has been represented by singer Marko Bošnjak with the song Poison Cake. It is not clear which toxic ingredients could have had this cake. What do we actually know is that it has a mixture of sweetness and darkness. Without further delay, let's move on with the review. We start as usual by checking out his biography and career before representing the Balkan country in Switzerland. Marko is a Bosnian Croat pop singer and songwriter coming from the city of Mostar, Bosnia and Herzegovina, living his childhood and adolescence in the Bosnian town of Rama and currently living in the Croatian capital Zagreb. He starts to develop his musical skills at a very early age, singing initially in the children's choir of the local church of the town together with his elder sisters, being his talent discovered by the nun that was the director of that choir. A proof of his determination to become a singer was tangible at the age of 11 when he sang his set up in the second season of the Serbian talent show Pikove Zvezdice, despite the objections of his father. He would easily advance through all the phases of the season, getting not only to reach the final show but also becoming the winner of the show in that season. After his victory, he would keep making appearances on musical shows in the different Balkan countries, where he was then known as the boy of the angelic voice, while he was still having his high school classes in the town of Rama, being bullied during those years after being perceived different from other children of his age. This situation would lead him later to change his environment, ultimately moving to Zagreb, Croatia after finishing his high school studies. Then he would begin studies at college, which alternated with various jobs at the same time to pay his college expenses. Simultaneously with that hectic life, he kept his wishes to become a musical artist, finding the perfect opportunity to do so, while he was starting to get widely noticed thanks to social media with his covers of many local and international hits. It will be in 2021 where Marko will be announced as one of the contestants of the 23rd edition of Dora, the renowned Croatian national final for the contest, by making his official debut as a performer. He will participate with the song Molisa Nas, with which he got quite close to win the national final, being the runner-up behind Mia Dimšić, who ended up becoming the Croatian representative that would attend the edition held in Turin, Italy. He will keep releasing singles after his first participation in the national final, and he would also start to take part in musical festivals in Croatia while he was still studying and working. During 2023, he will make a sudden change of environment, moving for a short time to Berlin, Germany, to study music management, and then going back to Zagreb to work in a fast food chain until sometime in the middle of that same year he will make the decision of leaving everything to give himself a chance by fully focusing on music. Musically speaking, by the way, Marko likes diversity of musical genres from R&B to soul over hip-hop to classical music, having a pretty wide range in this sense. Although he keeps reluctant to name specific artists as part of his musical and artistic influences, as he usually states that he is in the process of finding himself and creating an authentic and distinctive sound, he often mentions in interviews to artists like Lana Del Rey, Erykah Badu, Zayn, David Bowie or Freddie Mercury. He would release several singles during last year, consolidating himself in the Croatian musical scene little by little, having later 2 simultaneous participations. In one hand, he will be attempting once again to represent Croatia at Eurovision by participating in Andorra, and in the other hand, he will also be announced as one of the participants of the 9th season of the Croatian version of Your Face Sounds Familiar. Marko was already known for doing several things at the same time, but it was about to see how he will balance his participations in both shows. For this, we will take a look on how ended up his second attempt in the national final. Keeping its usual strategy, the Croatian public broadcaster will organize what it went to be the 26th edition of Dora to pick both the artist and the song that would represent the country in Switzerland. As usual, the submission period will open in mid-September of last year for the Croatian artists and songwriters who were interested in sending their proposals, closing it by late last November. After the deadline, it was known that 221 proposals were received, surpassing once again the record achieved from last year. An expert panel will be in charge of reviewing the received proposals to pick the 24 contestants plus 4 backups that will take part in the national final, being officially announced in early December of last year, while the songs will be premiered in early last January. Marko will be among the selected artists, with the song topping the musical charts of the country, suddenly becoming one of the big favorites to win the national final, leading to the precedent of his previous participation. In the other hand, it has stood out as well the participation of 2 artists that have had previous experience with Eurovision. The group Magazine, who were the Croatian representatives in 1995 during the edition held in Dublin, Ireland, was participating in the national final for the 5th time, where it comes to attention, by the way, that the now lead vocalist of the band Lorena Bushan already competed in the national final 2 times before joining the band last year, and the singer Marko Bošnjak, who was a member of the Croatian opera folk group Glapa Mora that represented the country in 2013 during the edition held in Malmö, Sweden, was participating this time as a soloist. About the format, the shows will be held in Opatija at the experimental round in Zagreb from last year, while the dynamic implemented during the last edition will remain quite similar without significant changes. Marko will make his first appearance in the second semi-final, going on to be one of the 8 qualifiers that will advance to the final show after the votes from the public. Thereafter, during the final show that took place in early last March, the voting results revealed that Marko was the absolute favorite for the juries, while he was the 4th most voted artist for the public, scoring the points needed to get the victory in the national final, gaining after 2 attempts the right to represent Croatia on the main stage of Basel. His victory in the national final stands out by being the 2nd performer from Bosnia and Herzegovina that represents the country at the contest, after the girl trio Feminine, with one of the girls being from Bosnian origin, who represented both Bosnia and Herzegovina in 2005 during the edition held in Kiev, Ukraine, and Croatia in 2010 during the edition held in Oslo, Norway. Of course, after being declared the winner, it will also be announced the withdrawal of his participation on the season of the Croatian version of Your Face Sounds Familiar after the 8th episode, to eventually focus in his preparations for the contest. A track which talks about revenge and personal recognition. Now I'm going to analyze in further detail about this proposal with which Marko has represented the Balkan country at the contest. The melody in this case is a pop track with elements of industrial music, which comes to attention as it represents a significant change compared to all the singles he has been releasing during his musical career so far. In fact, he has commented that the track represents a whole turning point, both artistically and personally, as part of that exploration and experimentation with other musical genres apart from the classic Balkan ballads. While the vocal skills from Marko were known beforehand from many years ago, for this track we find a quite different vocal registry, appealing to both shady and sweet phrasings, showcasing it this way the different shades into the song, including vocal extravaganza moments by the end. The lyrics have been written fully in English by Marko himself, together with a group of songwriters from many parts of Europe, being the first time that he performs a song penned by him in that language, and he usually writes and performs his songs in his native language, Croatian. Talking about the context behind the lyrics, it takes inspiration from both fairy tales like Snow White and Hansel and Gretel, and the American movie The Help, described as a story of revenge and standing up for yourself. It shows those contrasts between good and evil through vengeful emotions, anger, and desire of justice, reflecting in a quite metaphorical way that fight against those who have abused their position of power. In this sense, the poison cake will symbolize that mixture of sweetness and danger, somehow showing the dark and lethal side that things can have despite its attractive appearance. Reading the lyrics more in detail, you can perceive all those references mentioned previously by telling how fun he feels while preparing that poison cake, which wants to give the bad person with a sprinkle of revenge included. This reminds me of the mythical scene of the chocolate pie in the movie, prepared by one of the maids especially for her mistress, with all the impact and commotion for the latter one after realizing what it was really made of. During the preparation, he feels some power, going from a submissive role to an empowering one, illustrated with the metaphor of the snake, although he admits at some point as well that he ends up losing control and gut judgment, as expressed during the bridge. Despite the disturbing and shady context in the track, there is an important message that makes you think a lot, making a reflection of the consequences that can cause our actions, even in that hunger for justice, raising the question of in revenge is really the solution for our problems in some cases. Taking into account the curious concept presented with the track, it was about to be seen how they will be represented the contest and all the symbolism reflecting on it through the official music video. The plot begins with a close-up of Marko with 3 round mirrors behind him, as well as many pieces of shattered mirrors in a mosaic composition, while he starts to perform the first verse. These mirrors, in addition to represent a clear reference to Snow White, it reflects that inner fight with his emotions and the search of his own identity. Those first shots are alternated as well with other close-ups of him portraying himself as the character of Ophelia from the renowned drama play Hamlet by William Shakespeare, showcasing those typical elements from romanticism that evokes classic fairy tales, but in a more disturbing and darker manner. In the first chorus, the scene changes, seeing Marko in a sort of magical tree, while he's surrounded by dancers, alternated with some of the previous singers and other ones of him with a big snake and an apple, evoking parts from both Snow White and the biblical story of Adam and Eve in the paradise. The apple will symbolize temptations, the forbidden things, the rewards that come through revenge, while the snake, being particularly this one an Indian python, will symbolize danger, change, and liberation. Although in popular culture the snake usually has a negative connotation, we also have to remind that in many other cultures it represents transformation and rebirth. The dynamic is carried throughout the second verse and the second chorus until the bridge of the song, when another different scene is added, seeing Marko in front of a decorated cake. And shortly after, by this song's outro, he will try to take poisonous by pouring a green liquid on it, assuming that it will be the poison. And right after, he starts to eat the poison cake with his hands, while all the shots previously seen before alternate, finishing the performance with a close-up of Marko still eating the cake, keeping his gloomy aspect all the time. Seeing that both the song and the official music video are loaded with references and symbolisms, there was curiosity on how he will present it on the stage due to this wildly disruptive character. Now we will check out his live performances, both in his second participation and in the contest itself. Recalling the staging in the national final, the performance begins with a round shot in black and white, where Marko is apparently seen upside down. Thereafter, the shot starts to spin slowly until there is see straight, changing to a frontal shot suddenly, then appearing full female dancers dressed like spooky cuckoos, while Marko wears an outfit that makes him look like Dracula, being all of them in a prop that would resemble part of a kitchen, while the lighting is presented with yellow and purple tones. While the attitude from both Marko and the female dancers is relaxed and fun, taking into account the funny choreography performed by them and the colorful visual graphics allegory to cakes and sweets, the remaining of the song is much darker. For the second verse, the performance continues with him and the female dancers spotted from different angles of the stage, realizing later that the prop scene at the beginning now is gone, keeping the focus just on them, and in some moments you can notice that one of the female dancers detaches the cape from Marko's outfit while he is still singing the track. From the second chorus there are fire columns, and shortly after Marko has his vocal extravaganza moments with the song's outro, also in line with the different energetic choreographies done by the female dancers until the end of the performance. I have seen the performance somewhat poor, and I'm sorry for saying it like this, but it had many elements that I did not find neither appealing nor interesting as I would expect. I get the fact that he wanted to make use of that fun and shady duality that the song has both in the choreography and the visual graphics, but the problem is that far from attracting attention, it is kind of boring to see instead. Then, vocally speaking, he started with an acceptable vocal performance, but the big issue this time were the vocal extravaganza moments during the outro. His voice was cracked and he mixed the high notes, which made it somewhat awful to listen to. However, this was due to the fact that Marko had a cold before his participation in the national final, which would undoubtedly have affected his vocal performance in general. And even with all that, he presented his proposal in the best way he could. Sometime later, he presented his proposal live in many of the Eurovision pre-parties of the season, although without his female dancers this time, doing a sober performance in this case, but I've been saying that his voice was much better, hitting the high notes during the outro without any difficulty. For the staging in Basel, it won't considerably change according to what it could be seen during the first rehearsals. Marko's outfit was completely different this time, looking more like a wizard. The female dancers are now using more avant-garde outfits. The prop that resembled the kitchen was dismissed, using a big cauldron instead in the bottom of the stage where the performance begins with white smoke on the stage floor, giving the impression that Marko would prepare the toxic potion, that the venomous ingredient that he will eventually add to the cake. In the other hand, the lighting would incorporate green and red tones in addition to the yellow and purple ones already seen in the national final, while the visual graphics are not that outstanding this time, dismissing the imagery of cakes and sweets to only show different textures in line with the stage lighting. Watching her live performance in the first semi-final, it starts with Marko at the bottom of the stage performing the song around the big cauldron, with two of the female dancers appearing later doing energetic choreographies on each side of Marko. It is seen that they discarded the playful and fun dynamic by the chorus like in the national final, having a shadier attitude, much in line with the plot of the music video, and thereafter appealing at the two female dancers by the second verse. The dynamic remains pretty similar while Marko and the female dancers are approaching little by little to the front of the stage, coming to attention in some moment that the body of a snake is crawling around the runway of the stage, at the special effects of course, although it is seen by just a few seconds. Once in the front of the stage during the bridge, Marko takes off the cape to reveal the rest of the outfit, then reaching to the climax, having his vocal extravaganza moments in the outro, while fire and smoke corners appearing non-stop until the end of the performance. Until that moment, I thought that the proposal could have some grade of improvement ahead of presenting it during the contest, but after seeing it, I think that the performance was right, and just like that, as there was not any element that could make it outstand or make it more competitive and more on the other entries of the semi-final. The vocal performance from Marko was on point, you cannot deny that, but however it was not enough to conquer the audience, as the voting results would leave him in the 12th place in his semi-final. Summarizing all what could be seen and commented, I'm sorry to say this, but the Croatian entry for this year did not get my attention. And it is a pity because there were huge expectations after the revolution that maybe Lasagna achieved from last year. It is true that he said a long time ago that in case of attempting to go to Eurovision again, it will be with a completely different type of song, precisely as part of that process of experimenting with other musical genres. But I consider that was exactly the main problem by doing a very risky bet with a song that probably did not fit with his musical style at all. In fact, if we compare this song with any of his previous singles, these are like oil and water. At some point I can give value to the measures he was intended to transmit, but I had the premonition that he would not get too far in the competition, which ended up happening unfortunately. The final results support a serious flop for the Balkan country after the two outstanding results obtained in the last two editions. Even so, despite the result, Marko will move forward with his musical career. In fact, he is still working on the tracks that will take part of his debut studio album, in which the song with which he participated at the contest will be included for sure, with the unknown of whether it will contain compositions only in Croatian or it will have some songs in English, having the goal to release it during this same year or the following one, and that surely will be supported with a promotional tour in Croatia and some of the Balkan countries of the region. This has been the Croatian entry of this year for the contest. What opinion deserves for you? Does it leave you indifferent or it was one of your favorites for the edition? Let me know in the comments down below so we can keep the discussion. And this is it for today's episode. If this video has been of your taste, take a few moments to like it, thus you can help me bringing me your support for this content to reach to more people. Subscribe to my channel, enable notifications if you have not done it yet, and find me through my social media as well. Take care and see you in the next episode. Bye bye.